We in California live in one of the most beautiful states in the union, and we know that because we're reminded that that's why we pay such high taxes. Now, I might point out that while I'm trying to do this recording for the last 3 days, I've had huge trucks in front of my house repaving the road. Now, California, as I just learned, and we've known before, but it was reiterated, I bought tires that are good for 70,000 miles. However, in California, they only allow 30,000 miles on their warranty because the roads are so bad. So again, what am I paying taxes for? So again, back to this road, they are repaving the road and they do such a cheap job every year that they call it repaving, but they just fill in the holes. And while they fill in the holes, they come back 2 years later, it's guaranteed employment and guaranteed work for those who fix cars, but it certainly doesn't fix the road. Meanwhile, it's putting all that toxic resources into the air, and the procurement of the resources cannot be good for us either. So there we go. What's on the screen? I just wanted to share a little update about how wonderful California actually is. This news article is talking about SB 91 that was reiterated in January of this year. We're in 2021. And what does that do? This is a gentleman who lived in his home for 30 years. He rented it out in 2020 pre-COVID, but did not know that once COVID hit, that he would not be able to get rent or get those individuals out. He ended up losing his home and selling it for about a $70,000 loss just to be able to get out because he couldn't afford it anymore. And government would not allow him to evict because in California, tenants have more rights than landlords. So what does he have? He went ahead and sold his home, as I mentioned, at a $70,000 loss. And what he can do is he can ask the tenants to back pay him. And if he gives them a forgiveness, then he can collect 80% of the back money they owe, which I think is $70,000 at the point that he sold. But he has to forgive 20%. Now, who has to forgive 20% for money that's been owed to them for over a year that they were forced to sell a home? It's just inexcusable who comes up with these rules. But he's decided he's not taking that option. He's not offering a settlement. However, he can't legally even go to court until August 1st of 2021. So he lost out on 2020, lost the opportunity in his own home, had to move his family, and has to wait till August 1st to hopefully find a fair judge that will force the tenants to pay him. Meanwhile, the new owner, yep, you guessed it, inherited these tenants who are refusing to pay rent and will have their own issue as well. Thank you, Governor Newsom. Let's move on to the next issue. Did you know that in California, somebody sat around a table and decided, hey, how much more money can we get from people in our state? And this is a question I've always asked. California is one of the wealthiest states in the nation. I remember pre.com that the fifth largest economy on the planet was generated right here in my backyard out of Silicon Valley. Fifth largest economy on the planet. That surpassed the majority of the nations on this planet. And yet they're always whining about not having enough money. They charge the highest taxes. They have the highest property taxes, they have the highest income taxes, they have the highest price of homes, and they have one of the largest populations. Thus, they have a shitload of money coming into them and they can't balance their budget, yet it is our problem, the taxpayer. Now, up until this last year, we always learned that, hey, this is your fault, you voted it in. Well, who votes it in? We can take that step back. Sure, let's take responsibility for our actions. If we don't use our voice and convey a proper usage of government, then there's leverage there. But who votes these in? Primarily individuals who don't own property vote in a whole slew of entitlements that get attaches to property owners. However, property owners have a cap on how much they can charge for rent, so they can't recoup that money. Thus, those who don't own property are saddled with these extra burdens. We also have a lot of undocumented workers in this state, and I hope that is still a term that is able to be used. If not, I apologize. I would be welcome for an education on what the proper term is. But tax collection is different in that category, and many of them have been able to vote through these years. And then we have students who will move to a location for the purpose of an education where their mind is shifted into how great it is to live in a socialized area. They will vote in all sorts of wonderful ideas for those who don't have money. And yet, once again, those get saddled with the individuals who live there beyond 4 years and who have property and or businesses. There isn't quite an awareness as to who's voting this in. However, we were also educated in the fall of 2020 that, we may not actually be voting, which is what has been declared for many, many years, that governors come in, different roles come in. We won't even name the most famous at this point, but they are placed into office and people look around and say, really, did you vote for that individual? And that's usually not the case. So this is beyond my accountability and my responsibility. I've been using my voice. We are speaking out. There's only so much we can do in the face of corruption. So let's go back to this one. Somebody sat around a table and decided, hey, how much more money can I take from these poor people in California? We're going to squeeze them like turnips. So here we go. We have an update that was in March 25th of 2021. That was just last week. California's unclaimed property law. Now, you might think that unclaimed property might be a used car on the side of the road or somebody who hasn't maybe passed away and their bank account hasn't been touched in 10 years or maybe even 7 or 5 years. But no, that's not the case. If you have a stock and the company sends you a dividend check via mail and that check gets lost in the mail and you're not aware of it, and so you don't cash it because you haven't received it, then after a period of time, you are not notified that there's an outstanding check. Instead, that entire stock is claimed by the state of California. You might say, you've got that wrong. Nope, that occurred last year. They don't even notify you. What else occurred last year? Last year, I had a savings account. Now, what do we do a savings account? We put money into savings account and we kind of whittle away what we can, stuffing more and more acorns in there. And then at the point where we need it or we're ready for the major purchase, then we pull it out. And that may be a short term, that may be a long term based on your goals. Well, in California, if they have now bumped up the rules, it used to be 7 years, it moved to 5 years, it moved to 3 years, and somehow it moved to just 1 year. If in 1 year you have not made any kind of transaction in your savings account, then the state of California's controller's office stepped up and says, hey, this is unclaimed property. It now belongs to me. Now, what we might think is, well, if it's unclaimed and you've got it in a bank, much like the stock that would be with a brokerage house or even individually bought from the company, you would have an address at least on file, if not also a phone number and an email address. But that's too much work for the state because you might realize they're stealing your money. So instead, they just swoop in and take it, and the banks are complicit. They turn over your cash without even letting you know what they're doing. So let's click on the next one here. Inactive savings accounts can be turned over to your state. This was in January 26, 2021. So this year, if you forget about your savings account, and again, forget for a year, how many of us had money to put in our savings account in 2020? It was pretty dry. A lot just went right into our checkings and pushed out. And for many now, the unbanked population is growing significantly where they don't even have access to banks. So if you forget about your savings account, the government could take possession of your savings through a process called escheatment. See that word cheat right in the middle? The thought of the government repossessing your bank accounts might sound scary, And it is, but achievement is an important process that helps the government keep the financial system running smoothly. How the hell are you going to tell me that my financial system can run smoothly because you're stealing money out of people's accounts? Now, this is a grown-up who wasn't able to access their savings in last year because of other issues, and so the state took it. What about a child who gets birthday money and sticks it in there and then doesn't put money in for one birthday year? Well, they've just lost their account too. It's just inexcusable the way these people steal our money. So here's another one. This is January 26, 2021. This is a click of that. Inactive savings accounts can be turned over to your state. The reality is it can, it is, and they do. Okay, let's look at the next issue here. Unemployment. This is another benefit we have in California, just like many of the states, all of them. However, California has whined all year long, saying that due to tech problems, the system shut down. Due to identity problems, the system is shut down. For many people waited 5, 6, 7, 8 months for their unemployment to come through. They may have gotten 1 or 2 checks like myself, and then it was cut off again, and another excuse came forward that they shut down because they had too many claims. And then we found out that California had paid out about $30 billion to the wrong people. However, that number quickly escalated to a correction point of possibly upwards of $40 billion to people that were incorrect. But meanwhile, they placed a hold on 1.4 million accounts, and 4 months later, yep, I'm still waiting for my unemployment. So here, this was again last week, March 24th, 2021. Potentially 800,000 California workers face delays through the end of April in receiving unemployment benefits issued by embattled state employment. Now, how are they embattled? They have all the tools. They are in one of the wealthiest states. The tech giants are all based here in California, headquartered right here in Silicon Valley, although they've now chased out a good majority in 2020. They have all the tools that they need, all the resources, and an abundance of unemployed employees to help support improving the process and the communication. Yet they're going to whine that they're embattled. Meanwhile, here is a single mom. 4 months, no pay. Thanks, California. I didn't have a choice of that money taken out of my account. Let me just add one more thing with unemployment. Did you know that unemployment may not be an option to you, but it is an option to your employer? In fact, your employer can choose to take money out of your account every month. Now, that is illegal if they do this. They can take money out of your check every month for unemployment, but not actually provide it to the state of California for unemployment benefits for you. Now, although it's a slap on the hand if they take the money out and don't put it into an unemployment account, if in fact they do choose to lay you off, fire you, or furlough you for whatever reason, you are not eligible, even though the money had been taken out of your account for all those years, and in some cases, decades. And yet you have no way of knowing that that didn't happen until you go to file. So here's the next one we have. This is another whining of EDD, but let's just look at some other brighter lines. You know, for many of us, church became the place to at least get emotional and mental support in 2020, to dig deeper to who we are, why we're on this planet, and where we're going, to try to really understand the truths grounded in any kind of reality in the face of absolute craziness. And yet tyranny stood up. We've got here Pastor Mike McClure of Calvary Chapel in San Jose, California, faced more than $700,000 in fines, which ballooned up quite a bit after that. In fact, the individual pastor here had what I understand was a warrant for his arrest. He had to go to see the judge many times and was found in contempt for not paying the fine and not shutting the doors when the people needed him. We also have down here, oh, here's the contempt reference for Pastor Mike McClure, who, by the way, is a father of 7 children, an absolute family man. His father is the one who started the group of churches, of which he is now the pastor of one of them. This is a family who cares and gives and emotes what it means to be as followers of our God, the Lord. Now, here we have to obey God's words. California church fined $1 million. This is attorney Robert Taylor, again, referencing the Mike McCure case. So as a sample, down in Southern California, there's a county called Orange County, and they were balking about a month ago because there had been slightly under $30,000 worth of fines to the various churches down there. And Mike McClure stood up and said, really? I have personally been fined 37,000. The church has been fined over $1 million, and I've been charged with contempt of court. So this is in California, meaning it isn't balanced, it's not the law. And just like we know, punishment is not equal. Somebody decided that this was somebody they would go after, and sure enough, they did. Now, I will also let you know that as a churchgoer to this particular church, our faces have been pictured and our license plates have been pictured as people stand there in the parking lots intimidating us just so that we cannot go into the church. Way to go, buying a one-way ticket for yourself. Here we go. We have to obey God's word. California church fined $1 million for worshiping indoors. Now, this is pretty bad. Do you know how many COVID cases they had at this in order to justify that? You're right. None, not one. All right, so what else do we have here in California, as it's such a rosy state that we pay such high taxes for, that we're even voted to go about 3.3% higher starting in 2021, the income tax. Now we're looking at here, San Diego teachers are given an option to teach migrant workers. Well, that's excellent. Look at how kind they are. And they can even change assignments to do this full time. San Diego public school teachers to give migrant kids in-person instruction before their own students. Students in San Diego are still currently learning in an online only format. My child got excused from school between March 13th, which was a Friday, and March 16th, which was a Monday of 2020. We are now April 6th of 2021, so we have surpassed 1 year and going into 1 year and 1 month of absolutely zero in-person education. Now there's some ages, if you're at a university level or maybe even a high school level and dedicated, I certainly agree that you can sit at a computer, get some coaching and learning and move on. Let me tell you, preschool, kindergarten, first grade, not the case. That is social time. That's about learning to work with one another. That is about running and playing and crying and falling and all those emotional skills that we look going further. We are constantly being told not to set our children in front of a computer or TV because they just don't learn the same. And yet for a year and 1 month, which by the way is longer than you can leave your savings account unattended, your child can be unattended at a computer. Now, what happens with the child that's just a little over than first or second grade? Yep, they actually know how to use the computer. And do you know what is one clip away from that Zoom that they're using? That is right, the entire world. Anything that is bad in this world, anything that's good in this world, anything that's cute and cuddly, and any kind of propaganda will be clicked on with one click. You can see TikTok, Instagram, and of course, all the YouTube videos you want instead of actually being in class. It has been a horrible year for students to sit in front of a computer. Their eyesight's getting bad. The top of their back is getting curved and sore. They're not getting exercise. The children have gained weight even if their nutrition and basic exercises stayed the same. So for instance, in my family, our nutrition is approximately the same, and we get up every morning and either run or ride our bike. During lunch, we take time to go for a walk or run or something outside. But that is not the same as a child in a classroom. He gets up and hops and skips around to the teacher's desk or to another student. That is not the same to every child who runs out of that classroom the first moment they get to get the ball first. That's not the same as the student who runs as fast as they can over to the lunch cafeteria to get all those running and sprints and competition add up in the metabolism. And so we've now seen children who have put on weight, change their metabolism, and will never ever get that back. But hey, that's okay. That is your student. Please don't be selfish. Instead, individuals who have snuck into our country have been given envelopes full of actual cash, not even debit cards or any precepts of tracking, actual cash. And the students are giving medical attention, places to live, and in-person attention while you, the taxpayer, is paying for all of this. Where else can we go here? This just reiterates the fact that California is still on distance learning and lockdowns. Now, what's the status on California's Governor Newsom's recall? Well, he doesn't believe that that's a fact. And in fact, he believes it's unfair. So when we talk about fairness, we can go through some issues that are fair. What about the gentleman of 30 years who just lost his home and couldn't collect rent for 11 months before he sold it, now has to wait till August 1st to file and hope that he gets a judge that will award to him? Now, in small claims court, you may get an award. I have gone to small claims court a number of times, and yet I have never been able to collect, because there's a difference from finding a just judge who awards you and actually squeezing the money out of an individual who chose not to pay you in the first place. Thank you, Gavin Newsom. So as we move forward, Newsom is joining Democrats to join forces to stop the Republican recall. How can it be? How can you not want this wonderful man as governor? Well, there we go. There's the update on California. There's now, I think, 1.7 million Californians who have signed that recall, and we are not validated. Meanwhile, we have great representation in Washington, D.C., who are really standing up for our rights. And I look forward to see how this year is going to turn up as inflation kicks in, gas prices have gone up, groceries have gone up, paper products have gone up, pet food has gone up. Jobs are not available. We're still on lockdown. Students are not being educated. And yet, you know what has gone up? Absolutely, their salaries. They all voted themselves in. Bonuses for the hard work that they're doing, and increases in their salary. Well, here we go. Cheers, America. And this was a reality check for California.